Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a Disney Life podcast. This is episode 64 that you are tuning into today. And my name is Rachel, and I'm joined here by my co-host, Missy. Good morning, Missy.
Hey, Rachel, and hello to all of our listeners out there. We appreciate you being with us today, especially appreciate you here to listen about my recent trip that Rachel's going to give us a little intro to here.
Yes, absolutely. So as Missy just mentioned, she just returned from kind of a 2-for-1 vacation. It was Walt Disney World was the bookends to a Disney Cruise Line vacation on the Disney Wish. And this was a special trip for her. She did travel with both of her daughters, and this was her oldest daughter's first trip on a Wish class ship. So I know she was super excited about that. And I'll also add in case Missy doesn't, her oldest daughter that was going was a fantastic singer as well. So I just think with the whole princess theme of the Wish, this was so perfect for Gracie to go. So Missy has two very musically talented daughters, and I enjoy listening to all of their musical exploits throughout the year. So,
well, thank you, Rachel. That is so sweet of you to say. And now, spoiler alert, we didn't go to any shows. So we did not get to enjoy any of the theater aspects of the ship. I can get into that a little bit more as we go through my trip. But yes.
Well, sorry about that, folks. But yeah, so I just thought this is going to be such a great trip for them. And we have not discussed this. Missy and I talk about this often. We do not discuss these trips prior or our episodes prior beforehand. So I don't know how the trip went for her, but I hope it went great. And I can't wait to listen along with you. So again, if you're tuning in, a Disney Life podcast is a place where friends old and new can come together as we talk about our Disney adventures throughout the world, from Walt Disney World to Disneyland and even Disney Cruise Line. So thank you so much for joining us, and we are glad you're here. And with that, we're going to start with Missy's trip report. Missy, knowing that you cruised over a weekend, I am assuming that you were on a 3-night itinerary on the Disney Wish. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct, Rachel. But as you did mention, we bookended this trip with stays at Walt Disney World Resort, which is our favorite thing to do. So if you were listening to Rachel's intro there, you heard her say that this was a special trip for me, which it was. You may be a little sick of hearing that because I'm pretty sure I say every single trip of mine is special. I'm very sorry. It is true. I will never, ever get to the point that I take any of these trips for granted. And there is something special to me about each and every one of them. So that being said, this trip was the first trip I have ever taken. That was just me and my two daughters. We are so fortunate to often meet up with friends and family or have a couple additional people travel along with us, which I always love. But it just kind of happened through circumstances and planning that it ended up being just us three girls. If you're new here, I do have two daughters. They are soon to be 20 and almost 18, 17 and a half. I don't know what she is. You know, some days I think she's 6, and then some days I'm like, what is she, like 25 by now? Yeah. How long have we been doing this, right? So 2 teenage girls. So it was a special trip for us. This was my 5th sailing on the Disney Wish. So I am not a newbie to the Wish. I guess I am now Wish Gold, as far if that was something that they considered for Castaway Club. I have now sailed 5 cruises on the Wish. It is not my favorite class of ship. For a while, I thought maybe that was due to the fact that I was more familiar with the Dream and Fantasy class ships, so maybe I lean towards them. I think it's safe to say now, with 5 sailings on the Wish, 1 on the Treasure, and 2 on the Destiny, the Dream and Fantasy are still my favorites, but we still had a phenomenal time, and I would absolutely do it again. So I guess I'll take you step by step here and tell you a few stories about our experiences and some things that we learned and some tips for you along the way as well. So the Wish is currently sailing 3 and 4 night sailings out of Port Canaveral, Florida. So the 3 night sailings are Friday to Monday, and then the 4 night sailings are Monday to Friday. So this was a weekend sailing, Friday to Monday. We decided to make the most out of it and arrive early on Thursday. So as we've said here many times, you know, Rachel, do not arrive the day of a cruise. You have to arrive at least one day prior to sailing. unless you're within close proximity to drive yourself to the port, you don't want to risk literally missing the boat for your cruise vacation on that ship. So we did fly down very early flight Thursday morning, and it seems to never fail. Things always go a little bit awry the day before we travel. There's a lot to be done. The dogs need to go to the kennel or to their babysitters. There are things that need to be taken care of at the house. We live on a small farm, so there are chickens to be tended to and just a lot of things happening at home. So I feel like when I do this to myself with my planning, that I try to extend the time at Disney as much as possible. But we had a 6 a.m. flight, which meant we were leaving our house by 2 o'clock in the morning. So
Wow.
yeah, and I do this to myself a lot, and it's my own fault. And I don't regret it, but it was a rough start, just being that tired. But of course, we were up and ready. I'm always paranoid that I'm going to sleep through an alarm. So I actually love it now that my girls are both old enough. I could tell them, you guys set alarms too, because I would normally set my regular alarm and then also one on my phone as a backup just in case I fall back to sleep. So I feel like I did get maybe a couple hours of sleep just with the peace of mind of knowing that they had alarms to go off also and would back me up if I missed it.
Yeah.
So we had a 2.5 hour drive to the airport. Now I am in the northeastern Pennsylvania area, the Scranton area. For any of you fans of The Office out there, yes, that is where I am located. And we are so lucky to have a lot of airports within what I consider a reasonable drive from home. I will drive 2.5 hours or so to get to an airport in order to get that direct flight to Orlando. So we do have a local airport, a small airport in Scranton that has Breeze Airways flying a few times a week direct to Orlando. But unfortunately, those times and days did not match up with what we needed for this trip. So we opted to fly out of Trenton, New Jersey, which we have before. This is a tiny airport located, basically, it's literally surrounded by fields, cornfields, farm
Wow.
fields. It is
Okay.
in the middle. I cannot stress to you enough how this is in the middle of what seems to be nowhere. Now, we're outside of the city limits of the city of Trenton, of course, but super small airport, smallest airport I've ever been to, if that flies regular flights. So we flew with Frontier. I have many times before. I know a lot of people knock them. I think in the 15 years or so that I have been flying regularly, I've flown at least probably 10 to 12 times with them. And I only had one flight cancellation once, which was something that was out of their control. I know other people have had very different experiences with them, so I don't mean to discount that. But I personally have had a lot of luck. So this Trenton airport is so tiny, and I absolutely love it. Our other option would be out of Philadelphia, which has a few airlines that fly direct every day to Orlando International Airport. However, that airport is massive. And, we flew from there. I talked a little bit about that when we went to Disneyland last month, and it just was not a great experience with their pre-check and their security and the lack of their pre-check line options, that kind of thing. So when we booked flights for this trip, which I just did since the Disneyland trip, the thoughts of the Philly airport really were in my head pretty strong and leaned me towards Trenton. So anyway, back to Trenton. If you've ever flown from there, you know what I'm talking about here. You have to actually walk outside onto the tarmac and board the plane. I walked
Oh,
up steps
wow.
carrying
Yeah.
my suitcase with me, my carry-on suitcase to get on the plane. It actually really helps expedite things because they open the front of the regular front doors with a ramp that you can go up, or the back if you're able to do steps. And they'll tell you, if your row, whatever it is, like 20 or beyond, go up the back steps. And it gets everybody on the plane much faster. And then, of course, everybody off the plane much faster too. So love that about them. But a very tiny airport. They have one flight going out of there at a time. They have bag claim, which is basically in a double wide trailer that's opened up that they put the bags inside of. But
Wow.
it's just such an easy, relaxed experience.
Hmm.
They have just a parking lot. There's no garage or anything. It's a parking lot. It's like $10 or $12 a day. It
Wow.
was like, compared to like the 35 I'm used to paying in Philadelphia, I mean, this was just the way to go. And this was kind of a budget trip that we booked pretty much last minute. I booked it late spring, early summer for the cruise itself. So we were adding on the other things and kind of switching things around with where we wanted to stay and what we wanted to do before and after. So anyway, early flight out of Trenton, everything went great. And we were on the ground, I think by 8:30 in the morning in Orlando. So that was excellent. I mean, we were ready to get the day going.
Yeah. Absolutely. Even
Um,
though it's an early morning, it's one thing to be tired. It's another thing to be tired and stressed out. So yeah, I like that idea
right.
of, not having a stressful experience that early in the morning at an airport. So that's wonderful.
Right. And what kind of Orlando traveler would I be if I didn't take photos of the carpet at MCO when
Yeah.
I arrived? So,
May it never change.
yes, exactly. However, I did take a video of it. And when my daughter looked at the video later, she's like, why is this so blurry? I said, it's not blurry. The carpet is in really bad shape there. They
Yeah.
need to replace this carpet. Don't call attention to it because we don't want them changing it. So, but
Yes.
looking at my photos here, I could see my carpet photos were taken at 9 o'clock. So it was like
Wow.
9:01 a.m. We were on our way out of there and heading to Bag Claim. We got to our resort. We use Lyft. We almost always use Lyft. We've always had great experience with them. Their prices seem reasonable. They pretty regularly will send me discounted offers.
Hmm.
They know when you get to the airport, of course, they're stalking you. They know you're
Yeah.
going to book a flight. It popped up the second I opened the Lyft app, book this by 9:43 and get 15% off or whatever. And I get they could be playing me a bit. I get they could be jacking up prices to lower it or whatever, but
Right.
still, it's within what I feel is reasonable. So that's what we do. I would rather that than wait for years, honestly. And I was never really a huge fan of Magical Express. I loved it for larger families or for families who weren't familiar with the Orlando airport and the Disney World area, like I am fortunate enough to be. But even before Magical Express was retired, we had started using Lyft at that point.
Yeah.
So that's what we stick with. Anyways, so we stayed at Disney's Riviera Resort prior to our cruise for a night. This was my, I think, third stay there. And neither of the other times did I have any time for swimming. So that was our main goal of this day. We were going to go there. We're going to have a pool day and enjoy the resort because we really enjoy their quick service food there.
Hmm.
It's somewhere that we happen to hop over to, like if you stay at Caribbean Beach, I think we've talked
Yeah.
about that here before. It's really
Yes.
easy to get over to Riviera there. So we were there. We arrived a little bit before 10 o'clock. Of course, there were cast members there to greet us. Now, this trip, I intentionally did not check in online because I wanted to force myself to remember to ask about magical extras. So that's something I said we'd be touching base here on soon, because if you're not familiar with magical extras, these are little extra things that Disney offers to you because you book a vacation package with them. So if you're staying at a resort and you have a package that includes tickets or anything else, you're able to qualify to get this magical extras card. Years ago, they used to mail it to you with luggage tags that you get
Hmm.
prior to arrival, and you need to take it along with you. Now, they don't really mention it. Sometimes I get an email telling me to check on it when I get there. Sometimes I don't hear anything on it at all. So I kind of just wanted to check and see what the options would be. So we went to the check-in desk. They helped us there. We linked our Magic Bands. We had a little bit of a hold up with that because we have Magic Band Plus, and when you use those at Disneyland, they have to be disconnected from Disney World to be used at Disneyland. So we had done that for our trip last month, so they needed to be reconnected, and we had a little bit of a thing there. So it took a little time, but they were super helpful at the front desk there with that. I asked for the Magical Extras cards. They brought me an envelope and gave it to me. When I got to the room, I opened it and discovered that they just gave me luggage tags. They did
Oh
not
no.
actually give me the magical extras card. So I was a little bit annoyed with myself at that, but I was like, okay, whatever. We mobile ordered actually from the Lyft for Primo
Okay.
Piatto, which is their quick service location there. We all ended up choosing to get, they have flatbread, like a breakfast flatbread with egg and cheese and sausage on it that we have had before and we really liked. We all ended up ordering that. And then one of the little mini loaves. Have you had their banana bread? They have.
Yes. Yeah, I have had their banana bread. Yes, I have stayed there once before too. It's a fantastic resort with fantastic food options. So yeah, I've
Yeah.
had that.
So, and banana bread isn't like my go-to at home, but it's just something that I typically get when I'm there. It's a tiny little loaf. It's super adorable. It
Hmm.
comes in like this little baskety type thing all wrapped up and has a little Riviera chocolate on the top of it and some other chocolate chunks. So we had ordered one of those also. So as soon as we arrived, we hit the I'm here, prepare my order, and then stored our things with Bell Services because, again, it was 10 a.m. So we did not anticipate having a room, but we planned ahead with our swimsuits in a day bag and were able to store our luggage with Bell Services very easily. As we were eating our breakfast, we got a message that our room was ready. So that was shocking and
Yeah.
amazing. But well welcomed because, as we had said, it was an early morning and we were pretty beat by this point. So we had a studio villa booked. So Riviera is all part of their timeshare program. So it's all villas there. The studio villa is a queen bed, a fold down Murphy queen, and then a single fold down. All very comfortable beds. And with three of us traveling, we each had our own bed to sleep in. So that worked out really well. The bathrooms in these studios are also very unique. So they have two separate sliding doors on the face of them. And then one of the sliding doors goes into a room with the toilet and a shower, and then the other sliding door goes into the space with a sink and a bathtub with shower. And then between the toilet and sink space, there's another sliding door. So all in this space, you have three sliding doors. So you could have it all closed or all opened or any configuration that you want. Somebody can get into and out of the toilet area without having to go into the sink and tub area or use the shower. While I told my kids, like, you can both shower at the same time. You should do that just for the sake of being able to say we utilize this benefit, of
Yeah,
having
right. Yeah.
we didn't actually need it, but I could definitely see if we were there for a little bit longer how it would be beneficial. And they both loved having the large shower with the rain shower head above them, and it was very nice.
Yeah.
This is a deluxe level resort. It definitely feels very deluxe. It's newer, so I feel like the newer resorts maybe feel a little more luxurious because they're more modernized to what we're
Mhm.
used to with like what modern luxury is.
Right.
Nice and clean, everything was sleek. But the biggest thing about this room to me, and this was just a regular, what they called resort view. So I guess their more desirable view there is the one that faces into the pool area. Ours faced the front of the resort where parking is, except for just beyond that, we had the most amazing view. And I know you know this, Rachel, because I
Yes.
posted just a little bit about this when we were there, and I know you saw that. We could see Spaceship Earth and most of World Showcase, like we could identify the buildings and all of Future World, not Future World, World Celebration. Is that what we're calling it now? Like the Guardians building.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
could see all of that right there. I walked out and just gasped. And then I gasped again because I realized just beyond that, I could see in the distance the Contemporary,
Oh,
which meant to
wow.
me we would not only have a view of luminous fireworks, but we would also be able to see Happily Ever After later at night. So I said, I don't know what we're doing for the whole rest of the day, but we need to look up what time fireworks are happening tonight so that we can be sure to be here for fireworks because I'm pretty sure we're going to have an amazing view.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, we did.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. They absolutely did. And as much as I'm dying to know that room number, I don't want Disney to know that so they don't change that category. That is
It
amazing.
wasn't us though. It was like this whole section of the building. I'm like,
Wow.
why aren't people talking about this? Are they not in their rooms this time of night?
Yeah.
Are they, somebody had commented about Topolino's has such a great view. This is better. This is so much better. And I originally had an 8:30 p.m. reservation to eat at Topolino's because I figured it just to have it. I'm one of those people that'll book things that I think I might need in case I need it, and then I'm sure to cancel it ahead of time.
Right.
A few days before we left, I did cancel that reservation because I thought, we didn't really need to spend that kind of money on a table service restaurant when we would be having sit down dining for the next several days on the cruise. So I figured, maybe we'd be feeling like heading up to the lounge area to get like a little something, and that would give us access to watch from up there. But I figured we would just see where we ended up at that point. Maybe we'd see fireworks, maybe we wouldn't. I never imagined that we would have a room with an absolutely perfect fireworks view.
Yes. And
So
you did have you had like a front row seat. It looked so close from your
it
video that you
really
posted.
was.
It was amazing.
And it wasn't even really zoomed in that much. So then I'm standing there kind of looking from the balcony like, okay, that road is there. And I'm like, and the park's right there. Like you never feel like you're almost to Riviera when you're standing in Epcot.
No,
But
not
y'all,
at all.
but you are,
Not at all.
you know, and even the Skyliner ride, I mean, that doesn't take you directly to Epcot. That takes you like down the way, and then they have that turning station and you enter the
Yeah.
back of Epcot. Basically, you're doing that because you're scooting around all of Epcot because it's right there. So Anyway, that was amazing. So we got to the room and we decided, you know what? Let's just lay down and take a little bit of a break, get a little refresher, and then head down and go swimming. So again, it was before 11 o'clock. We were in the room. Let me see. My photos were like at 10:49 a.m. We were already in
Wow.
the room, which was fantastic because when we checked in, they did say, well, we were booked solid last night, so we aren't going to have any rooms yet. It's only 10 o'clock. And then 50 minutes later, we were already in our room.
That's amazing.
So
That's absolutely amazing. Truly. I mean, it really is. So, and it's late. I'm really surprised because this was a late summer trip, how that they were booked full, but that could also be due to staffing, booked full compared to staffing or other things like that.
Mm,
But
could be.
could be, or
Things
just
seem
people
pretty
leave with
things
this.
seem pretty busy around there. I mean, so this was August 6th was the date of our arrival there. So still pretty early in August. I know schools further in the south are already back.
Mhm.
We don't start until August 24th up here. So I think a lot of people traveling from out of the area are still heading down. There's a lot of schools around us that don't start until after Labor Day. So
Wow.
we keep the travel going, I guess, from Pennsylvania down.
I guess so. Yeah. Yeah.
So we decided let's get our suits on, head down to the pool because there were thunderstorms forecasted for later in the afternoon. We wanted to beat that. We also had plans to go to Typhoon Lagoon that day because with it being our arrival day, a benefit this summer of staying at a Disney World Resort hotel is the free water park entry. We've talked about that here several times before. So we had friends who happened to be sailing the same week, but not the same sailing as us. They were sailing on the Disney Treasure, which was sailing on Saturday, but they were also flying down Thursday. So we had plans that we would meet up and go to the water park with them since it was their arrival day too. And they weren't arriving till a little bit later. So that's why we figured we'd do the later afternoon water park. So it was a little bit before noon. We are approaching the pool area. I'm saying, who's got their magic band handy? Because I left mine in the room like a goofball. Just forgot it. And I'm like, and I didn't want to have to get my phone out. I knew I could use the app to
Yeah.
unlock the pool gate if I needed to. But so Annie holds her hand up. She has it. And as she raised her hand in the air, we hear thunder. And I said,
No.
and then the whistle blows and
Yeah.
the pool was closed. So people are pouring out of the gate as we were just entering it. So well, I'm going to at least go in there and take a couple photos because I've yet to step foot in the pool area. And, I wanted to at least
Okay.
get a couple pictures. I'm like, and now the pool's cleared. So it's a pretty good time to
Yeah.
get some photos. So the crazy thing was, if you're familiar with this property, there are two pools and they're pretty close to each other. I guess the one is kind of considered the quiet pool. It doesn't
Yeah.
have lifeguards there, although I don't think there are necessarily quiet rules with it, but it is a second pool. That pool did not close. It remained open. We actually decided, well, there's no point in us going and getting in that pool because now it's really crowded with everybody who left the first pool. Plus, they closed it because it's potentially unsafe and it's going to rain. So why get
Yeah.
in if it's going to start pouring on us anyway? So we sat there at a chair just for a few minutes to relax and enjoy the humidity before going back into our very nice and cool room and watched a lot of people swim. And we thought maybe the lifeguards, once they cleared the one pool and shut that down, they'd go to the other, but they did not. And we waited until it was actually raining before we went back inside and that other pool was still open. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that seems like a liability issue at some point. I mean, I know that they have signs posted, no lifeguard on duty, but does that clear them of any?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
And so I also wonder if maybe it has to do with the fact that this pool has a slide. It has like a lighthouse towery looking thing. Maybe it's at more risk than another pool. I don't know. I have no idea. I can't explain it, but that was our experience. Maybe it was supposed to happen that way. Maybe it wasn't, but that
Right.
is what happened for us there. So at that point, then we went upstairs. We're like, well, let's just take a nap. I was beat. I wanted to be able to stay awake that night for fireworks, which we determined were at 9 o'clock at Epcot and 10 o'clock at Magic Kingdom. So I knew I'd be up until at least 10:30 at that point. And then we decided it just poured. I mean, it did not stop. It rained and rained and rained and
Oh,
rained. And
no.
we've been in Central Florida enough, especially in summertime, to know that you're going to have that, 3 o'clock-ish rainstorm that's going to move
Yeah.
through. This did not move through. This just was there for an extended period of time. At this point, our friends had already arrived over at their resort, which was Art of Animation. So we said, well, we can get to the Skyliner pretty easily. The Skyliner was still running at this point. So we said, we'll come to you guys and we'll meet there at Landscapes of Flavor, their food court, and just all have dinner together and visit. And then we'll see where we'll go from there. Because we had originally decided we wanted to go to Cake Bake that night over at the boardwalk area because it was close and we didn't have we didn't have reservations there, but we figured we'd just do the takeout and find a spot to sit there or take it back to our room. So we were at Art of Animation in the food court for quite a while, and we finally decided, let's just risk it and go over there. We asked a few cast members. They said, yes, the Skyliner was open. We started to walk towards the Skyliner. I'm thinking, this is raining pretty steady. And we stopped at the drop-off bar, which is it's just outside of their main building area and the Nemo pool there. And we asked somebody there was a couple sitting there enjoying some drinks, and they were laughing and saying like, yeah, that Skyliner's not going to be open. I'm like, I don't think it is. I'm like, they told us inside it was, but I don't think it's going to be. And a cast member happened to be walking by a lifeguard because the pool was closed. And she said, well, she was going to run and check for us. And she checked and she said, no, it's closed. So back inside the hotel we went, sat it out for a while again. At this point, we were just kind of sick of sitting there. We thought, you know what? It's showing on the radar that the storm's mostly passed. So why don't we just get there to the Skyliner station and wait in the line? Because then when they open it, we'll be there. And I kid you not, as we were approaching the Skyliner station, we watched a cast member come out and remove the closed sign and reopen it, like as we were walking. So that worked out absolutely perfectly. I said to them, you guys are risking it coming with us because you may not be able to get back here. You'll be stuck with us. They would need to take a lift or something to go back. And they were like, with how this rain is at that point, they really didn't care because it was the end of the day and they wanted to go out and kind of explore and see some things anyway. So along with their group, they had 2 little girls who had never been to Disney World before. And I just love that. I love to be able to see the magic for the first time. So when we were stranded there kind of at Art of Animation, just hanging around, we decided to just take a little walk around in the main building and see what there is to see in the lobby. And in comes Minnie Mouse in her adorable little fuzzy pajamas. It was the sweetest thing. Their 2 little girls are around 8 and 10 years old. She took the littler one's hand and she walked through the lobby with her. And when she got to the end, she could see I was recording this experience with them. And she gave her a big hug, and it was just so, so sweet. So I love that Disney makes it a point to make sure there are things happening, not only just at their most expensive hotels, but on every level. Art of Animation is a value resort, and it was just so fantastic to be able to see these little ones have this experience with Minnie Mouse there. Plus, her pajamas were absolutely adorable. So
yes, okay, I saw those pictures and I was thinking, I wonder what she's doing there. So. And you too. I knew why Minnie Mouse was probably there, but I was wondering what you were doing there. So all of this makes sense.
So I was the one that seemed out of place, not the character. Okay. Yes, that's what I was doing there. It was so, so sweet. So yes, those were our friends' cousins who were there that we had not met before, but we were thrilled to be able to meet them on this trip because we heard a lot about them. So, and they were brave. They ventured out with us. They rode the Skyliner with us. Of course, we had to switch at the transfer station and then took it all the way over to the back gate of Epcot and then walked in the rain to Cake Bake Shop. And if you've been to the takeout counter there at Cake Bake, they are very careful to not overcrowd the space inside. So they have like a little queue area, the rope set up outside where they hold people. I kind of thought maybe they'd have some mercy on people in the pouring rain. No, they were you're a party of 10. You need to wait till it clears. I said, can't we break down and send the small children inside out of the pouring rain? Like let them and their parents go, at least the 4. And they're like, okay, yeah, you could do that. That's fine. So we got the little ones in there and us adults and and our big kids just toughed it out in the rain for a few minutes until we were able to get in there in order. So my friend learned the hard way. You can't just trust having a magic band to go around Disney World if you want to buy an alcoholic beverage. You still need to carry your photo ID with you. This is something that I already knew, but just kind of, it's been long enough that I just know I take my wallet everywhere. We've had days that we've gotten to the park. This was several years ago at this point, but I remember one day staying at Beach Club and getting to the Garden Grill at Epcot and finding out their whole Magic Band system was down and you couldn't charge anything that day. And we had literally no other money with us. And I had to leave the restaurant and go all the way back. This was before Apple Pay was a thing. The Magic Bands were pretty new, but we had to go back to the room at Beach Club and get our money to come back and pay our bill. And, they were very understanding.
Right.
Because it was like a system-wide outage and a lot of people were experiencing problems that day. because we were told at that point to trust magic bands and this is all you need and you could be
Yeah.
hands free and not have to bring your stuff. But that is not true. You
Mm-mm.
need to bring your wallet with you, have
Yes.
another form of payment, and have your ID. So anyway, they have the drink. I think it's called the Black Swan, which is very similar to like an espresso martini, and they have them to go and they're delicious. So I had gotten one for myself, and she was right behind me and went to order, and she was not able to order because she didn't have her ID with her.
Yeah.
Like, whoops, sorry.
Yeah.
So we ended up taking all of it to go. They packed it up in a nice bag for us, and we went to the shops along the boardwalk there, the ones right at the boardwalk in Resort. Annie was in pursuit of a specific shirt. My kids, they always do this. There's like something that they see, they get in their head,
Yep.
and then they want it so bad. And then we're hunting all over property for it. And the computer's never right. And they should know by now the computer's never right. Remember for a while you could look on the app and check inventory, and that
Yeah.
was never right. So they pulled that off. That option's gone because they learned it was never correct. That's a real thing that happened. We asked at the counter, and of course in this store, and the cast members were super helpful and gracious and saying like, well, showing the inventory's low, so you never know. It may not be
Yeah.
that accurate. We're like, yeah. And they were telling us this particular shirt she wanted was only available at Disney Springs. And I was like, nope, I am not going to Disney Springs in the pouring
Right.
rain tonight, going back to our hotel and watching these fireworks, because at this point it was after 8 o'clock. So the shirt she was after it's like a baseball jersey style that they came out with. I think earlier this
Okay.
year they put the princess line out. So
Yes.
Gracie has a Rapunzel one, and
Okay.
then Annie wanted the Tiana one because the number on the back of the jersey is the year that princess's film was released. And The Princess and the Frog was released in 2009. So it says 09 on the back, and that was the year Annie was born. So she
Okay.
wanted the one with her birth year on it,
Aw.
which I thought was a super cute thing. I wasn't opposed to her getting this. This is like the big souvenir she wanted, that she had been saving for. But I was not willing to trek all over property this night to find it. Like, remember, we left our
Right.
house at 2 a.m. So we decided to just lift back because it's very close. I mean, I just explained how close these things are, even though Disney makes them seem like they're further away and it takes a little longer on the Skyliner. But we took a lift. I think it was $19, and that was with a 20% tip. So it was
Okay.
not. It was not a bad cost at all to avoid the rain. I would have thrown a $20 bill at pretty much anyone at that point to drive us there and just get us back to our hotel. So we took a whole sampling of cakes with us. Like, we each picked a different one. They had a special one there for the fall that was like a pumpkin and cream cheese one. I think Gracie got that. I got the chocolate, and Annie got what they call the Millionaire's Cake, which is like a couple different flavors. It's vanilla and chocolate. I think there's like something caramely in it. I'm not sure. I've had it before. I've had a few of them. So we took that back to our...
You're making me think, because my stay next month is at the beach club, and our first night we are going to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party, but we plan on having a pool day. So I have not been to the cake bake shop yet. So maybe we just go and do a little to-go order. And
oh my goodness, your girls will love it. It is so pretty there. Take your ID and your wallet. You will need them. It's just so pretty there. They have the cutest special little things, but it is pricey. We are talking about $22 per slice cake. So that was basically our real dinner that night. I had gotten a kids meal over at, or no, what did I get? I think I had salmon and potatoes. I don't know. I had something that wasn't very heavy because I knew I was going to have cake later. So anyway, we went back, we watched the fireworks. It was fantastic. It was an amazing view. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So I would never hesitate to stay there with this resort view room again, because it was great. I did receive an email on Wednesday before our Friday sailing with instructions on what to do for the Disney transfer. So we did use Disney transfers to get ourselves from the resort to Port Canaveral. So that transfer email did instruct us that we were to put our luggage just inside our resort room door by 7 a.m. and somebody would come collect it if we wanted. We opted to not do that. So I hate packing. I don't like to pack to get ready to go on a trip. I procrastinate packing as long as I can. And I really, really don't like to pack to come home. Like, I dread it the entire time. No matter how long the trip is, by the time I'm halfway through that trip, I'm thinking, oh no, it's almost time to start packing. So I did not want to start this trip off with having to worry about packing up the night before and having our things ready. So we opted to just carry our luggage with us, which is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
If you have them take your luggage, they come and get it and they transfer it separately, not with you. It's like on a transfer vehicle. They'll go and pick up some things in other places. I can remember somebody mentioning to me at one point how, they were tracking their luggage and they didn't think it was going to make it. It like went to the airport or something like that first.
No,
And it
thank
goes all
you.
over.
Yeah.
So we opted to just take it with us. We did have the luggage tags, which came in the mail ahead of time, which was surprising to me because I feel like more often than not, they were.
Yes.
So our assigned meetup time was 9 o'clock in the lounge that's just off the lobby at Riviera. So we got there a few minutes early. There was a cast member there stationed to welcome us. She had extra tags for us, so it was no big deal. She verified that we had our passports. They don't want you getting to the point and realizing you don't have what you need. So make sure they're out of your bag. You have everything with you. She checked us in and we waited in the lounge just for a few minutes. By 9:15, the bus was there to pick us up. So that was great because they had originally said meet at 9 o'clock, leave at 9:30, but actually we left at 9:15. So they had told us, like I'm willing to get to the port as early as I
That's
possibly
nice.
can because I'm ready to get on the ship, right? So we met in the lounge
Right.
at 9:15 we left. There were 17 people from our hotel. And then they said we had one other stop to make. They had 31 guests to pick up. I think we stopped at Old Key West to get those. They also gave us a really cute magnet. It was a Disney Cruise Line bus magnet that you could put on your stateroom door or take home or whatever. So I thought that was a nice little added touch. It was really an advertisement for Disney Visa and telling you to apply for the credit card. But spoiler alert, I've had that since 2003. It was my
Okay.
first
Well,
ever
there you
card. So like, you don't really need to sell that, but I'll take
Well,
the magnet. So
yeah.
now the Wish is actually sailing from a different terminal in Port Canaveral this summer because the Fantasy and Treasure are both sailing out of the regular cruise line terminal. So the one we were in, I realized when we got there, was one we had used when we sailed with MSC a couple of years ago. Very close. You're right next door. Like when you're on the ship, you're looking out
Okay.
down at the DCL terminal. You get a pretty good view of what the terminal building itself looks like because you're just at a little bit more distance away. So we did arrive there a little before 11. I don't think they have quite as much seating there in this terminal as what we're used to. It got a little bit congested. They have a separate area for concierge, but it wasn't like, the one in Port Canaveral and the one in Fort Lauderdale are separated. The one in Fort Lauderdale is like an upstairs loft area overlooking, and then the one in Port Canaveral usually is off to the side. This was just a roped off area of the regular chairs. So I feel like for concierge guests, it's not really as magical of an experience to start, but they did still get to board first. So great for them for that.
Yeah.
We were on the ship just before noon, which I thought was great. We walked right onto deck 3, which is the area you board into the Grand Hall. Of course, they announced our family name when you walk in, which is always a super special thing. I can remember the advertisement showing that kind of thing way back when the cruise line first started sailing. And I love that they've still continued that. I mean, that takes a lot of effort every sailing to announce every family that gets on, but it gives everybody that special moment.
It does.
We wanted to do some touring around the ship because, as you had mentioned, it was Gracie's first time on a Wish class ship. Annie has sailed on the Wish and Destiny before, but just because of scheduling issues, Gracie had not been able to. So I absolutely love that. As we decided, let's start just walking around this deck so you could see what's here. Here comes Captain Mickey, and he stopped to give them a hug and get a photo. So that was like such a special way to start the trip. Again, we're
Aw.
just seeing these random characters. I love when you can find characters places that aren't scheduled meet and greet you go and get in a line for. So we had seen Minnie the night before and then Captain Mickey on the ship. So
Yeah.
that was exciting. The open house at Oceaneer started at noon. So we just had to kill a couple minutes until it was time for that. I wanted the girls to be able to have the fun of going down the slide because that was something that wasn't available when they were within the Oceaneer age. They
Yes.
don't have that on the other ships, just the Wish class. So Gracie definitely wanted to see that. She loved going to the Oceaneer Club as a kid. So she was very interested in seeing what kids now have as options to do. If you have not seen the kids clubs in the Oceaneer, on the Wish, the Oceaneer Club on the Wish or Treasure or Fantasy, do yourself a favor and look that up. Maybe we'll put some pictures up there of them. They are just the sweetest areas. They have something for every kid's interest. There's a room with books and coloring and art in the room where they do lab experiments and that virtual game thing where you can pretend you're like creating a ride or whatever. There's a Star Wars room. There's whatever that Avengers Marvel room is. I don't even know. There's just so much there. Even the bathrooms are adorable. They're so cute. So check them out if you haven't yet.
Yes.
So we walked basically deck to deck, a floor at a time, so that Gracie could scope out the whole shift. We wanted to do that right away before things got really crowded so that she knew the lay of the land and she knew where she'd want to spend more time as the cruise went on. So we went deck to deck up until deck 11 when we stopped at Marceline Market, which is the buffet on board, to have lunch. So as usual, they had plenty of space there, lots of seating. You know, people come in and tend to sit down first thing. Go to the back, head to the back of the buffet area. Both sides of the buffet are open and there's seating in the back. There's seating outside. There was plenty of space. So our rooms were ready at 1:30. That is the pretty standard time for rooms to be ready. So we went to our room. We had a room that was randomly assigned by the cruise line, and it was all the way in the aft of the ship. It was an accessible room. So it was a large room and it had a large balcony also. So that was great and fun to see.
Wow. That was very
was
great.
great.
You
So
lucked
much
out on
space.
that one.
So much space for the
is
three of
a
us.
Nice location.
I feel like these rooms all the way aft for guests with accessible needs, I think that was poor planning on Disney's part. I guess it was probably an easy space to expand their space, but some of the sections of the hallway on this class of ships are so narrow. I've heard many people who have accessible needs and need to use a wheelchair or a scooter. You can't get through if there's a housekeeping cart in the hallway. If there's anybody else walking down the hallway, they have to step aside. There's just not space for it. So I know a few people who do have a true need to have that type of room, and they always book the ones that are midship, and those seem to be the ones to book up first. I very often hear of people who are assigned, when they book those guarantee rates, are assigned a room all the way in the aft simply because people with accessible needs who kind of know the lay of the land, those rooms are just not desirable for them. So the rooms themselves are great, but getting there is difficult. So I think maybe that's why they seem to be available when it's time to assign the rooms. So I did bring our fish extender with us. So we have had a fish extender, the same one since 2015. If you're not familiar with the fish extender, this is a Disney Cruise Line thing that is not organized at all by the cruise line. It is done separately in Facebook groups. Most sailings will have their own individual Facebook group. You could just search for your ship name and date and it should come up in Facebook for you. And then just regular individuals, yes, on the sailing, somebody will take it upon themselves to go ahead and organize something for fish extender. This is like a gift exchange where you'll be assigned certain staterooms to bring something for, and then they will give to you as well. We did not participate in that. We just brought ours for pixie dust purposes because we had some things to give out. We figured we'd put ours out just to see what we get. We got a ton of stuff. So much, in fact, that the last night my kids took a bag of stuff and distributed it to other staterooms around on the ship to kind of re-gift it because there were things geared more towards littler kids and they wanted to share the love there. So it was surprising with us being at the dead end all the way at the back corner of the ship for so many people to have come by to leave gifts for us. So that was interesting. I kind of thought maybe we'd get one or two things, but they had a whole pile of stuff that they went to redistribute to people that night. And I have my magnets along with this also because we typically will put some magnets up on our door just to make it more festive. It's not something that I typically care about, but the kids always get a kick out of it. So these traditional things we do every time, regardless of how old the kids are. They'll be 40 years old and I will still be hanging this on the doors because I like it. I'll still be taking the same old fish extender along with that. So we decided to go do a little bit of swimming. A lot of the pools didn't open until 4:00, which I thought was kind of lousy. The pools on the ship are the thing for me that has the lowest rating. I like the idea of having several sprawling pools that are more shallow. I understand water is very heavy. They can only have so much of it. The ship needs to stay above water. We don't want anything sinking. I get the structural side of it, but they just aren't open enough for me. When my kids were younger, we would swim till late at night on cruises, and you can't do that anymore. They close at 10. It's like the parks. Things close early. The Cove pool was open, but the regular pools were not. So I did not love that. We went to the muster drill, the safety drill. We were assigned into Worlds of Marvel was our safety station. We actually walked through the kitchen area to get to it, and then were shoved in this like back little, like it's the service area where they would go
Okay.
to refill things and like put the dirty plates and stuff all the way in the back of the room. That's where we stood. One of my kids was like, I don't like this
All
tiny
right.
space. Let's like get us out of here. How much longer do we need to be here? So I'm glad that didn't last any longer than it had to. It's pretty painless. I
Yeah.
would really love it a little bit more if we could do it virtually like we used to and just report in and scan in so to show that we know where we're going like some other cruise lines do. But apparently Disney Cruise Line
Yes.
really takes safety to the next level and they want us to go do this. So we do this. So then we headed back
They
up
really want
to
you.
our stateroom to watch sail away from the veranda, which we love to do. If you are an avid cruiser from Port Canaveral, you may be aware that there is a webcam, Port Canaveral webcam, that has a live stream from a restaurant called Fish Lips that's right along the pathway out there to sea. So we stood out to be able to wave there. I'm pretty sure the camera just missed us. We were trying to keep an eye on the live feed and it was a little all over and was like zoomed out enough that it couldn't really see us as we were waving when we went by. But that's something we love to do. I've watched that webcam for years and we love to just see if we could spy ourselves on that. So at that point, we headed up to the pool deck to get a little bit of a snack. The cantina was open. The kids wanted to get some tacos and I had some pizza. Just as a little bit of a snack because our dinner seating wasn't until 8:15 p.m., which was by choice. It is our preferred method. We don't like that early seating on these cruises because
Okay.
you have to stop swimming so early. When they aren't opening that pool until 4 o'clock, like I don't want to have to go out and get ready for dinner at 5. Like, no. So we went to the hot tub for a bit. Then we went to, I think it's Pluto's pool, it's like the super shallow one with like the little waterfall-y wall that's kind of on like the middle part, the middle landing there. It's a real shallow one. We went back to our room to get ready for dinner. Our room was already turned down by 6 o'clock. I have said it before. I will say it forever as long as it exists. One of my absolute favorite things about Disney Cruise Line is that they make up your staterooms twice a day. They'll do it in the morning once you get up and venture out for the day or to breakfast or whatever, and then they will do it again at nighttime and turn down the room. The turn down service is my favorite. It's just so welcoming
Yeah.
and relaxing. Everything always smells fresh and clean. The towels are replenished. The beds are turned down. The pillows are fluffed up. The lighting is different. You know, it's so cozy to settle in for the night. 6 o'clock was probably a little earlier than when I really needed that, but I love that it was done. It's one of my favorite things.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. And we mentioned when I went on my cruise with Royal Caribbean earlier this summer that we were given a choice of either during the day or in the evening. So they only clean once a day for most of them. I think suites still get twice a day, but we only got once a day. And we did choose the evening because I'm the same way.
So we were all ready for dinner at this point, but we had a little bit of time and we made one of the biggest rookie mistakes. We went shopping at like 7:15, which is when the first dinner seating was letting out. People getting ready
Okay.
for second dinner were shopping. It was a crowded madhouse, but we made it through it. We went to Mickey's main sales and Gracie got, I'm going to call it a spirit jersey sweater. So it's like a knit sweater. It's a cream color with gold embroidery on it. And it has like a captain's wheel on the front and it says Disney Cruise Line along the back. So it's like the style of a spirit jersey, but it's a knit sweater. It's very nice.
Okay.
It is very cute. It was pretty pricey.
That sounds really
Before
cute, actually.
my Castaway Club discount, before the discount, it was
Yeah.
$100. So it was very pricey, but I know she will take care of it. I know this type of thing lasts and she absolutely loves it. So that's what she chose to get. Annie found a different baseball jersey. We did not find the Tiana one. So she ended up choosing to get a Captain Mickey one, which was like a blue navy pinstripe, navy and white pinstripe look. It reminds me a bit of a New York Yankees shirt. And I guess if we had to pick a major league ball team in my house, it would be the Yankees. We are close to where the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders play, and they are an affiliate of the Yankees. So that's something our family is familiar with. But I loved it because it said 98 on the back, which is the year that Disney Cruise Line started sailing. So I thought that was a super cute thing. They have a line of 98 stuff out, and I really like it because have memories of that specific time. It was in 1998 that I graduated from high school, and I could remember seeing advertisements, seeing our local AAA office have advertisements for Disney Cruise Line up on their marquee outside. The good old fashioned, like you have to go out and change the words on it, Disney Cruise Line, sailing starting in 1998 or whatever. And
Yeah.
so that's something I always remember. I actually saved my graduation money to use towards a Disney cruise for our honeymoon several years later. I stashed money away because I knew I was destined to be on one of those ships. So I am very partial to the 98 stuff. So I supported Annie
Yes.
in her endeavor to get a jersey, but agreed that I would get this one for her. And if she were to find the other one, she could purchase it with her own money, because I thought, this will be our luck. We'll come across the second one, and then we'll have two of these two silly baseball jerseys, which I just don't really get, because they're like a heavy, like an actual jersey material, and they don't seem comfortable, but the kids like them. I also got one of the infusers with the reeds that stick out of it, the scented ones that smell like the ship. So that was an exciting purchase. They have those in the room. I will be testing that out and reporting back to let you know if that works. And I was also after the ornaments.
Okay.
So this spring they had announced ship exclusive ornaments. There is a chandelier ornament and a atrium or grand hall statue ornament for each ship. So I have been working on collecting those. I've had a few friends sail on other ships, ones that I've been on but have not been on since they released the ornament. So I did pick up the chandelier ornament and the Cinderella statue ornament, because there's something that I personally wanted to collect. I typically try to sway away from Disney collectible things, but for some reason, these just really sucked me in. So we headed to...
Yeah. I want to mention, I do want to mention real quick. So when you mentioned it was a madhouse the first night after the first dinner, early seating let out. And a reason, if our listeners are not aware, and this makes complete sense because I saw a reel about this the other day about how people line up that first night to get into the store. Right. And that's because the ship will not restock. And that makes sense. They have no place to restock. They can't restock. So this is not because there's something so exclusive to this particular sailing that is being dropped on that time. It's just because once they are out during that sailing, they are out.
And those Eevee towel animals have become very popular. Within the last year, Disney has created an animated version that they put out some shorts about with a towel animal that they have named Eevee. She is adorable. She's for sale on the ships, but they seem to get her in and then she's gone. There were people reporting the sailing before mine that she was plentiful, and by the time we were on board, she was gone already. So yeah, she was not there, and people were looking for her. So that's another reason. Plus, the stores cannot be open when the ship is docked in port, even at Disney Castaway Cay. So if you need to, if you want to shop on one of these 3-night sailings, when you're going to be in port from around 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. both days, the evenings are your only opportunity to shop. So we wanted to get that done. So dinner the first night for us was in Arendelle. This was not an amazing experience for me on a few of my Wish sailings because of my location in the restaurant near speakers where it was super, super loud. It did seem better this time. I think they've changed the show a little bit from time to time. We did not see Olaf, which both of my kids were pretty disappointed about. There was no Olaf in the show. I know they've had a few different versions of Olaf through the years since the ship started sailing. Our version was no Olaf at all. That's okay. So our table was actually in one of the corners, but happened to be right along the pathway that the characters take when they exit the stage. So that worked out pretty well because they did make some stops along their exit route. And, they come and go a few times during the performance. So it was nice to be able to see them. They stopped at our table. Yeah. Anna and Christoph stopped at our table on their way out. So that was really cute. As a mom, one of the things that I loved, even though my girls are big, so this will sound ridiculous. And if they ever listen to this, they'll be so embarrassed by me. But so I never had any talent with doing hair. Obviously, if you watch our shorts on social media or the YouTube video of this, I just don't do my hair. I have long plain hair and I don't know how to braid it. But when the movie Frozen came out, I learned to braid hair because my little girls who grew up with Frozen wanted to have hair like Anna and Elsa. So I learned how to braid hair. And that night for dinner, my girls are always very on theme with things. They're very appropriate for wherever they are going. So they had their bluish dresses on to match the restaurant. And Gracie had her double braids like Anna, and Annie had her French braid that went from one side to the other down the back. And Anna actually commented saying that their hair was just like her and her sisters. So I was like, oh my goodness.
Full circle. All right. I need to get those tutorials because my girls want braided hair all the time and I cannot do it.
Well,
I'm like,
if I
sorry.
can do it, you can do
This
it,
is not a
because
talent
really
I
I
was
have
given.
no talent for it whatsoever. But I have been able for years to get braids to stay in their hair, and we did it for this trip. So it was something that I loved. The cast was fantastic, as always. They had the fiddler there, which I think is the most impressive part of that show. But I'm just going to be honest here. I wish it was a different show. I would really, really love if we could have something a little more like
Okay.
what you experience at the Frozen sing along without the sing along part. I want someone like Just Eric there, okay? The historians. I think they're hilarious. I think they'd be more entertaining. I think they can interact a
Yes.
little bit with people and improv a little bit with people at their tables, and it would just really elevate the experience so much more than the way it's done. Just my personal opinion as a Frozen fan professional, because I know all about Frozen and love Frozen. My kids were obsessed with it, still are. I will always love it, but I just feel like maybe over the years we'll see a tweak to the show. And if Disney's looking for some other suggestions, head on over there and ask your historians at Disney's Hollywood Studios at the Frozen sing along for some suggestions. Another thing I noticed there, a little bit silly. I don't know if they've changed the dinnerware or if I just never noticed it before because of lighting or being busy or whatever. But the plates have the cutest little Anna and Elsa silhouettes on them. Like so the outer rim of the plate has like a circle around it. And then
Yeah.
on one side it's an Anna and the other is an Elsa, and they're facing inward. It's just the silhouettes of their faces. And I just thought they were super, super cute. I would like them to sell them so that I could buy a few, like to have as dessert plates at home or something. So just, if the cruise line would like to know my suggestions today, that's another one. After dinner, we went back to our room and we did one of my favorite things to do on a cruise ship. I never claimed to be a normal person. Okay, people. So don't hold this against me. Another thing I love to do is track cruise ships. I've probably talked about it before. I buy the Wi-Fi on ships because I need to be able to stay in touch with some things at home. And I mostly use it to go to various websites and apps to see what other cruise ships may be around me. I love seeing other ships. I love that you're in this vast, like out there under the stars and there's nothing, but then there's like some lights coming your way and I want to know who it is. So there are some ships you see frequently, especially on sailings like this.
Yeah.
So the Disney Wish does those 3-night weekend sailings. Royal Caribbean is always going to have a ship out of Port Canaveral that's doing the same thing. Right now it's Utopia of the Seas. We saw her a million times. It's cool to see other ships, but what I love is seeing other Disney ships. So I was very excited that over the course of this weekend, we were able to see the Treasure, the Destiny, and the Fantasy all at different times out there. So, and when I spy those red funnels, I get
Wow, that's
ridiculously
pretty cool.
excited as
Yeah.
if I just won the lottery or something. And then I take really blurry photos and videos that no one else has any clue what they are but me. But I know. So, there was a Haunted Mansion trivia that night
there you
at
go.
the Bayou at 11:30 p.m. And Gracie really wanted to go to this. So Gracie
Okay.
herself was named after Master Gracie of the Haunted Mansion, and it has always been a huge Haunted Mansion fan because it is her destiny. We did not win. I think we're second place. I told her, she was like devastated. She was just not happy. Like she was just so angry with herself for not winning because the two errors we made were things that we should have known better. We should have known the correct answers. But some of the questions I think were questionable. They were kind of hopping back and forth between locations and not saying which destination they were talking about. One of the questions was that we got wrong was what was the ride time? And we still don't know. Like, so it turns out their ride time is just the time you were on the ride. It's not the whole attraction time of entering the stretch room. So it was the kind of trivia that even if you know a lot, like you just may not get it right because you don't have all the information. Now, this is just a for fun, silly little Disney Cruise Line trivia. We were not going to go up to these people and inform the cast members that their questions needed improvement. I just told her, have your expectations in line from here on out with trivia because that is how it works there. So we finished up at that just before midnight, and they were doing the Kiss Goodnight with the
Yes.
chandelier and all the lighting in the Grand Hall at midnight. So we stuck around to see that, which is always a super sweet way to end the day. I love how the Grand Hall has become an interactive space on the Wish class ships and how they use it for more than, just a lobby welcoming area. So, and then we went back and we went to bed because we were exhausted.
Yeah.
It was after midnight and it was a busy day. So that was the one. The rest of the days I feel like will go by a
sounds
little bit
exhausting.
quicker to explain. Simply because we did a lot of lounging around and not a whole lot of anything else. So we woke up Saturday morning as we were docking in Nassau, Bahamas. We relaxed until probably 9 a.m. or so, started getting ready. One thing that was notable for me here that day when we walked out on the balcony, I was able to see Royal Caribbean's Beach Club there that they had opened in Nassau. So, no, just seeing it from the ship. So, and I'll explain.
Nice. Okay.
Right. So for years,
Yeah.
when we
Well,
would
yes,
visit
but
Nassau,
still.
it was so sad to see just these dilapidated homes that had been destroyed, I'm assuming in storms. It had to have been in storms. All along the way there, this peninsula that sticks out just next to the cruise port. And a few years ago, Royal Caribbean took over the property and built a location there, a destination for people who are in Nassau on their cruise ships to be able to book. So it was great to see it all cleaned up and bright and beautiful like the rest of the Bahamas area there for those guests to enjoy. So I love being able to see that. They had a big crown and anchor, their logo emblem there on display. I was sad to see, though, the condition of the lighthouse because I had not heard until now that their actual lighthouse was very damaged. The whole top of it came off in a storm last fall and it has not been repaired. So I truly hope, it's kind of an icon. It's like the icon to me of Nassau. Everybody knows that lighthouse. Everybody who sails in and out of there is taking photos of that lighthouse. And it is kind of in shambles right now. So I am hopeful that the people of the Bahamas are able to rally and get that repaired. I've heard that there may be some political things going on down there with it of who's supposed to repair it and if it's going to be repaired. So I just looked it up online when I saw it because I was shocked to see it. I had not heard anything about it. So I'm hoping that that gets fixed. So one thing to mention with these rooms that are all the way in the aft is you do feel some propulsion there, the vibration when you're heading in and out of ports, especially in the morning, you're going to feel that rumbling. So that's something to keep in mind. We're pretty much okay. We're seasoned cruisers. We're all right no matter where they put us on the ship. So it's okay for us to take that risk. If you're somebody who has concerns with motion sickness, it might not be in your best interest to book one of these discounted offers where they assign a room because you just never know what you're going to get there. So we did head up to Marceline Market for a late breakfast with Annie. Because Gracie and I had 11:30 a.m. reservations for Palo brunch. So Annie was not old enough. We've told her that most likely this is the last Disney cruise she will be on that she cannot attend the Palo brunch. But we did go without her. Even though she was a little sad because it is complimentary with my Castaway Club status to have the free meal there. So I felt it would have been silly to not eat there at all. And I didn't want to punish Gracie and not allow her to eat there just because her sister couldn't. So we made it very, very brief. I have been to Palo Brunch before when it took 3 hours. And now I can say I have been to Palo Brunch and had it take an hour and 1 minute because they ask you when you are first seated, how your day is, what else you have planned, and what kind of time you anticipate being there. Like, what is your desire? Do you want this to be a drawn out leisurely experience, which is really what it's intended to be? Or are you in a little bit more of a rush? So we explained to him how Andy was waiting for us and there were some foods we really wanted to experience but didn't want to take too long. And they were absolutely fantastic with being able to get our food to us quickly and let us be able to have enough time to enjoy it, but also be in and out of there quick enough that Annie wasn't on her own for too long. So that worked out really well. Gracie was happy to be able to get there, and Annie was very busy still. Wasn't done with what she was doing by the time we finished there. So
well, there you go.
they did bring us the
she's having a
bread
great
basket
day.
and the pastries. We had the almond croissants, which are always delicious, and then the pastry with the Nutella in them are always my favorite. We got the gorgonzola and great pizza. Gracie had an omelet, and we both had the chicken parm, and then the amaretto hazelnut chocolate dessert that we love. And they knew it was Gracie's birthday. So they brought out a plate for her with the icing that said happy birthday to her on it. So that was really nice. They had joked with us that they'd bring
Oh,
something for a photo opportunity for social media because they know that's what, I guess that's what the teens are after when they're there. So that was sweet. I was able to get a photo with her to have
right.
that to post
Absolutely. Yeah.
online. So
Yeah.
yeah, we were in and out in just over an hour. Annie had gone to trivia and then was very excitedly texting us that as she was passing through the Grand Hall, she saw they were setting up seating for what looked like it was going to be a wedding. So she was thrilled that she might get to see a wedding, but this was about
Oh,
12:50 a.m. and they were setting it up. So we said, well, let's go to the room and get changed and then we can go back. And we went back and by 1:40, it was all cleared and the wedding was finished. Like it was like 50 minutes and the wedding had
oh,
appeared
wow.
and
That's
disappeared
crazy.
in that time. We did see in the Facebook group after the wedding did happen, a beautiful bride and groom, best wishes to them, certainly, but we are sorry we missed your entire event. So we know better than to do that,
Wow.
make that
Yeah.
mistake again if we really wanted to see the wedding take place. It was very fast. So
That's
each of the
insane.
Disney Cruise Line ships
Man.
has a character on the aft of the ship. On the outside and on the Disney Wish, it is Rapunzel, which is Gracie's favorite princess. So she did have a special, she loves the Crowned Athletics line of clothing, which is a company that makes some, I would call them like Disney bounding type outfits that are inspired by the costuming that the princesses wear our various characters wear. In this case, she had like a skirt, athletic skirt and tank top that was like Rapunzel's colors and it had like braided up the front, like almost corsety looking. It was cute. Anyway, she really wanted to get her photo with Rapunzel. And I said, well, even though we didn't really plan to get off the ship in
Mhm.
Nassau, it would probably be a better view than a Castaway Key because we can get closer to it just because of how the ship was positioned and locked in and where Rapunzel's located. So Gracie and I got off the ship
Yeah.
really quick, took her photos. So quick, in fact, that they questioned us when we came back, like, are you back already? Because they had seen us get off the ship and then we were getting right back on. But we
Yeah.
accomplished what we needed to there. And then we headed right back up to Chip and Dale's pool. Which we giggled a few times about the questionable name of that. When I was saying it ahead of time, Gracie was kind of looking at me funny. Didn't really want to say
Yeah,
anything
it
because
is.
I kept
Yes.
saying Chippendales,
Right.
Chippendales. And she was like, Mom, like, what? You know what that is? Yeah, I know what that is. Thank you. It is not what happens at this pool. It's a regular family pool all the way
Yeah.
forward up on the top deck of the ship. We went up there to swim. We had some ice cream and just had a great the rest of our afternoon up there. We decided to watch Sail Away from our room again. And then the kids said, hey, let's go swimming, but let's give the Aqua Mouse a try. Like maybe it won't be too crowded now because it was 6:15 at this point and a lot of the younger kiddos were at dinner. It worked great for them. There is a great spot with some comfortable lounge chairs where I was able to sit and wait for them to take videos of them going by. So that was fun. They both said they like the Aqua Duck on the Dream and Fantasy better than the Aqua Mouse. They like being able to look out and see more rather than just having it be all screens, which as a mom, I love to hear because I also would prefer things to be not all screens
Okay.
all the time. We went in the hot tub for a bit again and then got
Right.
ready for dinner, which was in 1923 that night. Our seating again this night was in a nice location along one of the entrance walkways there. So, when we travel with groups, they do such an amazing job seating us all together. But because of the size constraints of the dining rooms, it's often so hard to get in and out of chairs. So it was noticeably easier to me this time. And we did request ahead of time directly with the cruise line. We requested that we had a
Yeah.
private table for the three of us rather than being placed with other guests. If you would like to be seated with other guests, you could request that specifically as well. If you wanted to take the time to get to know other people, that could always be fun. We love to meet new people, but for this trip in particular, we thought it would be nice to have it just be us. So it worked out well. I had some fries as an appetizer because there just wasn't anything on the
Mhm.
menu that was jumping out at me. And we had the filet for dinner, and then there was a sundae, an ice cream sundae I had for dessert. Then we may or may not have used a portion of our balcony to watch fireworks. This is something that Disney usually says you should stay off of your balcony for
No.
safety reasons on that side of the ship. We were technically in a room that wrapped around to all the way to the aft, so we weren't really on that side of the ship. So Maybe that was allowed and maybe it wasn't, but I would just say that it is possible to see fireworks from some of the balconies or windows on the ship. So we decided to avoid the pirate party itself and hang out down in the room.
So I've heard. Sometimes that's the
Yeah.
best
We definitely would not
views.
encourage
I've
breaking
heard. I don't
any
know.
safety rules. Right. So the next morning we were at Castaway. Again, I was
No,
awoken
not at
by
all.
the ship vibrating as it was docking. I could have gone back to sleep, but I didn't want to sleep the day away. So we got up. We went up to Marceline Market for breakfast at around 9:30. But we did something that is not the popular thing to do that day. We did not get off the ship at Castaway. We decided to stay on the ship and just do a little bit more exploring because, again, this was
Okay.
Gracie's first time on the Wish class ship, and it was just a 3-night sailing, and there's just not time for everything. So we did more exploring around the ship, and then we went out to the main pool deck. It was pretty much empty until about 12:30 in the afternoon. You know, there were a few other families out there, but there were rows and rows and rows of chairs available. We watched Aladdin in the pool at Funnel Vision, the big TV that's up on the forward funnel. They didn't really need to have all of the pools open, and they did not have all of the pools open. The Chippendale pool was not open, so that was sad to me because that's where I really wanted to swim. And they had about half of the pools in the main pool area open until about 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then they open more. So I think that's probably the magic time there that they figure people are going to be heading back from the island and there may be more people who want to swim on the ship. So they do open them as the day goes on. Now, the pools were practically empty, so they certainly didn't need them. And I'm also assuming they need some lifeguards for duties on the island as well. So that's why they don't have them on the ship. It makes sense. It just wasn't something I was
Yeah.
aware of ahead of time. I thought we would spend the day up at that forward pool, and that wasn't an option until later in the afternoon. But it worked well. We had lunch there at the pool area at the Festival of Foods. They have so many food options there, so that worked out well. We decided we would take a little bit of a break from the sun at that point as things started getting more crowded and people returned from the island. We went back to our room, spent a little time on the balcony. We watched Sail Away from the balcony. It's always so cool to me there when you sail away because they literally drop the ropes and push off and then you're like gone. And all of a sudden the island is just getting tinier and tinier and tinier. So again, we spent some more time wandering around on the ship. We went down to deck 4, the promenade deck, which is the deck you can walk at the lower level down by where the lifeboats are located. You can't walk all the way around on this level, but you can go upstairs to, which I guess ends up being deck 5 and then deck 6 to go all the way forward and circle around to the other side. So we experienced that. And then we decided to go have a little bit of coffee. And then we went to Hyperspace Lounge to check that out because we hadn't been in there yet. There were a ton of characters in the Grand Hall. They did that whole farewell show that they do, lots of dancing. So that was a lot of fun to see. There's just always something happening around the ship. We had dinner at Worlds of Marvel.
Yes.
I did notice that the interaction with Spider-Man at the end was improved from what I'd seen before. There have been times that I was there that he pretty much zoomed just down the middle aisles of the place and was gone in a flash. This time they did come around and let us know after they served dessert that he would be coming through and that he would stop at each table. Unfortunately, that message wasn't relayed to everybody in our area. There were at least, I think, 7 or 8 tables that were empty. The families had already left by the time he came out and was working his way around to us. But he did come to us. He posed for some photos, so that was a lot of fun. And at that point, it was time to head back to our room and organize and do my least favorite thing, as we know, is packing. If you do want them to move your luggage off the ship, you have to have it outside of your room by 10 p.m. We opted to carry it off on our own because we didn't have a ton of stuff with it just being this weekend trip for us and because I did not want to have it packed earlier. So again, I spent the evening tracking some other ships. That was the night that we saw the Destiny and the Fantasy. So that was exciting. At that point, my kids decided they needed to go up. Gracie does this little thing where she needs to go to the pool deck the last night and say goodbye to the ship. She loves being up on the open decks at night with the lights on, and she wanted to go do that. So all in all, it was a fantastic weekend cruise. I don't really know how anything could have gone anything better. Any way better because we just really had a great time. So even though it wasn't my favorite class of ship, I would not hesitate for a second to hop right back on there again. We did have a little bit of confusion for the last morning. Luckily, I had experienced this type of thing before and did check with guest services to make sure I was correct. They informed us that our dining time, since we were the second seating for dinner, we would be the second seating for breakfast, which was at 8:15 a.m. However, we were also told that we had to disembark at 8:15 a.m. because our bus would leave promptly at 9 a.m. and that there was going to be one bus heading to our hotel. And if we didn't make it,
Wow.
then we weren't going to make it. So we ended up doing
That's
what I
fun.
typically prefer for breakfast anyway, which is going to Marceline Market, the buffet. So we had the buffet breakfast that was open during the morning and you can show up there anytime. So we went up to Marceline on that last morning. There, a lot of people have their luggage with them. People leave it in the hallway. Of course, Disney's not going to guarantee the safety of your bags, but for the most part, you don't really have to be concerned. I wouldn't just leave your wallet sitting out on one of them, but everything is safely watched. We know who's on the ship. There are security cameras everywhere. So we were able to just kind of park our luggage along the large hallway on the way in there, had a quick breakfast, and then I disembarked. Very smooth process, no wait at all. It was right around 8:15. We headed out to the area where the Disney Cruise Line buses were, and we were heading to Disney's Wilderness Lodge, which I have talked about here before, one of our favorite resorts. One thing that did stick out in my mind that morning that kind of stayed with me, I plead with all of you, when you take a trip like this and you're taking your children or your grandchildren, this is something that they're going to remember for a long, long time. Let's hope, right? You make a huge investment in this and you're going to have in your mind a way that thing should go and how it would perfectly be. Please, if you get frustrated, take a minute and count to 10 in your head, close your eyes, turn your back to whatever's frustrating you. Don't lay into your kids. Don't put down your husband. I saw some of the most desperate, disappointing behavior in Marceline Market that last morning and thought, please God, don't ever let that be me. Don't let me teach my kids that it is okay to treat anyone that way, and especially have those around you affected by your behavior. Just, try to keep it in check. It's something that, we all are there for a vacation. You never know what people have going on in your lives. So I try to give them some grace when people lose their cool. But if you don't have a way that you're able to recompose yourself when you get frustrated, please find one and don't take it out on your poor spouse who is trying to help you control the kids, because it may or may not be their fault, but it doesn't help anyone to put the blame anywhere then. Try to make it.
Yeah. I'll give another piece of additional advice. Sometimes on those mornings when you're trying to get out and it is kind of stressful, you have to pack everything up, you have to be out. Maybe send a parent up to the buffet to grab a plate of food and take it back to the room for the kids to eat. That's what we did on our last cruise. I just went and got a plate of donuts and let the kids sit around and eat it while we finished up getting all the little loose ends that kind of go in the bag at the last minute. And it was a stress-free morning for us. The kids didn't have to be out of the room immediately, and we still got out really early that morning. So, and I didn't have to fight the crowds up at the buffet.
Because
so
while
maybe,
room service
that's
is
a
not available that
too.
last day, you could always send someone from your group to go grab food and bring it down to the room. So excellent plan. So we did promptly leave at 9 a.m. on that bus to Wilderness Lodge. It was also stopping at the Polynesian and the Grand Floridian after, but it just took us to Wilderness Lodge first, which was great. I did make it a point to get my Magical Extras card when I arrived. So
they're important.
So they
are
have
important. Don't forget
mini
these
golf
people.
vouchers or the ESPN Wide World of Sports vouchers, which will also be in your app. But the thing that I wanted it for, honestly, was for the Joffrey's coffee, because you get 10% off with your Joffrey's coffee. Sometimes it's even more than that, I've heard. And there's a whole list. They'll give you a whole list of places. Now, most of them, almost all of them, are at Disney Springs. So if you're not going to Disney Springs, you may not be as interested. But there are Joffrey's locations at each park. So that would be a handy thing to me. I'm looking here. I think Maya Grill, that's at Coronado Springs, right? So that was listed on here. I think everything else on this list is at Disney Springs. But anyway, I got the Magical Extras card and we were on a bus by 10:30 a.m. heading to Animal Kingdom, because we had decided that we lounged enough on this weekend trip. We did enough lounging by the pool that we were going to have a kind of Rambo style day. And get as much done in the parks as we could. Last summer when we went, we kind of had a ticket issue with some tickets being prioritized incorrectly. And a cast member corrected that by giving us additional tickets. that didn't expire yet. And so we had these basically bonus tickets that needed to be used before they expire. And we had 3 of them, and there were 3 of us on this trip. So we decided it would be the ideal time. And they were park hopper tickets. And it didn't take us long to realize that it had been less than a month since our giant Disneyland trip that we just took. And wouldn't it be cool if we were able to say that we visited all of Disney's US theme parks within 1 month of each other? So we did all 4 parks in one day. So
Oh,
we got
wow.
right to Animal
Yeah.
Kingdom. I was after the key lime pie, the chocolate chip key lime pie on a stick from Flame Tree Barbecue. So we got that. And then we went and saw the
Yeah.
Zootopia show again, which, it's a cute little thing. It was nice, air conditioned. My word, it was hot. I did not look at the forecast ahead of time because I
Uh-huh.
knew it was going to be hot. My watch told me all day it was 97. I had seen later in the day the real feel was 113. So it's no wonder I felt like I was scorching the entire
Wow.
day. The Zootopia show is super cute.
Yeah.
Like I always think that's really funny. I've seen it before. Then we took the bus from Animal Kingdom directly to Hollywood Studios. They start running those, I think, at 10 a.m. So we were well beyond that at this point. We went directly to the Frozen sing-along. And then we headed to Rock and Roller Coaster, starring the Muppets. It was our first time experiencing that. That was something we really wanted to do. They did have some extra fans set up in the queue. They had some umbrellas up for shade. It's been a really long time. It's been a really long time since I rode that without a lightning
That's
lane or
good.
fast pass or any way to skip the line. So we were in standby, which was nearly an hour long, and it really was almost an hour. But this was our main thing to do that day because it was the first brand new thing, the only brand new thing that we hadn't done at all. I was a little disappointed they were not running the pre-show. We just
Yeah.
walked right through there. It was dark. So I was sad about that. So didn't get to experience that yet.
Yeah.
The ride itself, I could be totally wrong in this, but it felt like there were less strobes to me, like less strobe lights, less craziness going on. The ride itself, exactly the same. Still great, still loved it. But it did not make me as nauseated as it has other times. So, and I was surprised because usually when I'm hot, I get nauseated easily. And I was very
Okay.
hot, but overall, it was a very good experience. On the way out, I had to stop at the restroom, which meant my children went into a store. And guess what happened, Rachel? She absolutely did. So Annie
Did
was
she
thrilled.
find a
And
Tiana
she had
jersey?
worn like a green athletic dress
Aw, I'm
just in
glad.
case she found it so that she could wear it over it. So she got out her wallet and she bought that for herself. She was thrilled with it. We have our '09 Tiana Spirit jersey. At that point, we decided to head back to the hotel and take a break because our room was ready. So we went back to Wilderness Lodge. We did a mobile order for Roar and Fork, which is their quick service there. And we took that back to our room and just sat in the coolness of our room. So this was, by the time this episode airs, hopefully the water issue has been resolved. But there has been a major issue there at Boulder Ridge, which is not the main lodge
Yeah.
building. It's the separate DVC building, has had no water for several days now, and guests are being displaced and put in at other hotels even because there's just nowhere else for them to go. For us, this meant that there was nobody swimming in the Boulder Ridge pool. There were very, very few people over there. You could tell there were noticeably
Oh.
less people at the hotel than there usually is because one entire building of people was not there anymore. So we did swim over there at that pool. I'm very sorry for anybody who was displaced, but I can confirm the pool was still open and our air conditioning worked wonderfully. Earlier this summer, they had some major issues with the air conditioning in the main lodge building not working, and they had people displaced a couple days for that. This is now there's other building there, and water was the issue, but we had no issues at all inside the main lodge building. So later on, we decided we would take the boat over to Magic Kingdom. We went into the Emporium because Gracie had been eyeing up some of the merchandise from the new Halloween line. So have you seen the ears they kind of look fleece and they have little ghosts on them, and the ghosts are wearing like pale pink mini hat. Yes. So
Yes, they are
that is
very
what
cute.
Gracie got. She loved those and they matched
Yes.
her outfit for
Yeah.
the day, almost like she planned it. Almost. And I know with these kids,
Almost,
once
yeah.
they have their mind set on something, it's just so much easier to just let them do it. I mean, we're talking about it. She's a kid, but she's almost 20 years old. She's using her own money. So, like, why hold her back from getting it? She went ahead. She got the ears. That worked out great. We stopped and did some photos with the fall decorations because, of course, the Mickey had wreaths are up and everything was super cute. So we did some photos. We rode Haunted Mansion. There was a bit of a wait for that. Again, no lightning lane, but we stood in the line for that. The kids went on Big Thunder. They didn't really notice anything. They noticed a couple different things with the setting, but they didn't really notice anything different with the track. And then we scooted out of there just as the Starlight Parade was happening because we wanted to monorail over to Epcot and hit our fourth park for the day. So we ended the day over in Epcot. Annie really wanted to ride Guardians. Gracie and I just were not up for it. So she decided she would head over there and ride that on her own. Gracie and I went to Soarin' Across America, which of course we experienced last month at Disneyland, but we had not in Epcot yet. So we wanted to do that. We were lucky to be in the middle concourse there on the top row. So we had a great view. I think I would still put it at number 3 in line of the Soarin' videos we have seen over time with California coming first and then the world coming second.
Okay.
But I'm glad we did it. And we headed out of there just as the park was going to be closing. It was closing at that point. It was 11 o'clock. It was open late for the deluxe guest, the extra hours for deluxe guests from 9 to 11. So that's how we were able to get in there. And then we hopped on the bus, which came relatively quickly. We had a very lucky day as far as their transportation goes. We just kept hitting it right. I've had days that you just hit it wrong every time. Or days that are half and half. Sometimes you're waiting, sometimes you're not. But this day we just really got lucky with transportation. Didn't have to wait too long for any of it. Got back to the hotel and packed up so that in the morning we basically just had to roll out of bed because, again, we had a pretty early flight. It was a 7:50 a.m. flight. So we had a scheduled lift to pick us up at 5:30. And we were already, it was after midnight by the time we were at our hotel and settling for bed. So no rest for the weary there that day, but overall, it was an amazing trip. We had a smooth flight home back into Trenton and a drive home from there. Everything went great, and we were just absolutely thrilled to have been able to do this. I'm kind of thinking it may be the start of a tradition every year when my husband has his remote fishing trip that he goes on in the middle of nowhere up in Canada. Maybe I'll get my girls down on a ship with me. So that pretty much covers it. I highly recommend the Disney Wish to anybody looking for a weekend cruise out of Florida. We had a great time. So thank you all for listening. Absolutely. I'll yap about my trips any day.
And thank you for sharing it with us.
So this week's listener question is a cruise line question. And this listener asked, what is our favorite transfer option when you are sailing from Fort Lauderdale and you need to get back to the airport? So what do you recommend down there, Rachel?
So I will always recommend either rideshare or taking a taxi because from where that cruise port location is in Fort Lauderdale to the Fort Lauderdale airport, it is 3.3 miles away. So as nice as the cruise line transfers are at other locations, for here, it's just not necessary because it is a 10-minute car ride. Most of the times you will see taxis lined up ready to take guests, and that is an easy way to just get off the ship and go right and get in line for the next taxi or to schedule a ride share. So that is going to be your most efficient route, your quickest route, and your least expensive route, especially if you're traveling with your family. So I will always recommend take a ride share or take a taxi. Skip the cruise line transfers.
I agree, Rachel. Those cruise line transfers are $29 per person. So when you have a family of 4, it will cost you far less to use a ride share than it would to use that Disney transfer there in Fort Lauderdale. So Port Canaveral could be a different story, but Fort Lauderdale, I think that separate ride share is a good option. So thank you, listener, for that question. If you have a question for us, there are several ways you can get in touch with us. We are on social media at a Disney Life Pod, and you can email us at podcast@storybookdestinations.com or a Disney Life at storybookdestinations.com, and we'll be happy to answer your question. I do have a tip today to close us out. And again, it is Disney Cruise Line related or any cruise related. And my tip for you today is to be familiar with what the restricted items are to pack before you're going to get on the ship. I almost laughed out loud as we were disembarking, and I heard a family behind us discussing how they just did not understand why they couldn't take their clothing steamer on the ship and what could the possible problem be. And somebody was saying to them, well, maybe it's a fire hazard. Yeah, you think you're on a floating vessel out at sea. You don't need anything burning up out there. So there is an entire list of restricted items on the Disney Cruise
Hmm.
Line website or on the website for whatever cruise line you are sailing with. So please be sure to take a look at this and be familiar with it. Plan ahead. Disney Cruise Line is amazing because they have a full laundry room with irons available for you to use. So you don't need to bring your steamer or iron. I think the most common confiscated items that I see tend to be charger cords and irons or steamers. I also noticed we were walking right by, I call it the table of shame. The table of confiscated items is usually just beyond the exit after you leave the terminal. And they come and will let you take your items back, anything they've held for you. I saw 3 heating pads. You cannot take a heating pad on the ship. There were 3 heating pads sitting there rolled up on the list. So
Wow.
just be familiar with what you
Yeah.
are and are not allowed to take before you get on the ship. It'll just save you some time and frustration once you arrive. So that's going to do it for today's episode.
That's an
Thanks for
excellent tip.
so much for being here with us. To hear me talk about my recent vacation. I hope it has brought you some joy today and maybe helped you a little bit with you planning a future cruise of your own. So until next time, make it a fun week and we will talk soon.
See ya.